Welcome to the MeidasTouch podcast. Ben, Brett, and Jordy fighting for democracy with you each and every pod, each and every day. We've got an incredible podcast.
Incredible podcast. Honestly, some of the best guests maybe we've ever had on the podcast.
Do you call a podcast though like we have a great podcast, or is it an episode? Is there a terminology for it that we should be using?
I think it all depends on. I think it all depends on the context there, Ben. I'm not sure the distinction.
Context definitely matters. Yeah.
You know, we got a great podcast today. We got a great episode of the MeidasTouch podcast today. We got a great show.
For those listening, Jordy is apparently in Antarctica. He's wearing his winter hat. MeidasTouch is a great hat, but Jordy
a great hat.
It is a great.
So one of the things they don't tell you when you're 28 and you move out of your parents' house and you get your own place is that your room that you grew up with, your childhood room, doesn't always stay that way. So my room here, I'm at mom's, I'm coming visit her, has been converted into an office. And now I am staying in the basement.
Love it. And that definitely further explains your sartorial, your clothing choices, Jordy. I'll break it down for you, what you're wearing. We have great guests for you today. Elena Sutnik will be joining, Ukrainian attorney and politician. She was a member of the Ukrainian parliament from 2014 to 2019 and serves as a permanent delegate to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. Sotnyk is a human rights defender and deputy prime minister.
And I will add, Ben, Olena is going to be speaking with us from the border of Ukraine and Poland. She's in an undisclosed location right there. She is actively helping people on the ground. I am so excited to speak with Olena. I'm so excited for everybody to hear this interview because she is really one of the most impressive people on the planet. She knows Ukraine inside and out, like you said, member of parliament in Ukraine from 2014 to 2019, and still deputy prime minister advisor. I am just so thrilled and honored to have Olena on the show. But that's not all, Ben, who is guest number 2 on the MeidasTouch podcast.
Double header on this pod. The double header. Ever go to the baseball game where you got the double header? You go to the first game, there's like 2 games.
Yeah, it's a lot of baseball.
A lot of baseball, but this pod, we do it concise, but we have State Senator Karen Berg, Kentucky State Senator. She's the state senator everyone's talking about who went viral. She's a radiologist, and she gave that impassioned speech against the Kentucky Bill 321, the state bill 321, which would ban abortion after 15 weeks. Everyone knows that it got over 10 million views, and she looked at the committee that was discussing and debating this bill. And she's like, I look around and all I see are men, and you're not doctors. Okay. I'm a woman and I'm a doctor. And let me explain to you the travesty that is SB 321 and what it's going to do to women. Let me tell you as a woman. Let me tell you as a doctor, let me tell you why your science is bogus. Let me tell you why what you are doing is so despicable and so hateful and so hurtful, and so excited to have both Olena and Karen on the podcast. I mean, we're really got some of the best guests today. One observation I want to make about Elena Sutnik too, and I'm going to mention this in the interview with her. You know, President Zelensky gets a lot of credit. I mean, he deserves all the credit in the world. Literally, he deserves all the credit in the world. When people make that expression, all the credit in the world, Zelensky should get it. But I do want to say this. An observation that I've had, and I think is one of the true strengths of Ukraine and Ukraine's ability to, fight for democracy, to fight for freedom. And it also ties into our interview, with Karen. They have in Ukraine so many young women in positions of power in the government, positions of power in parliament. And it is so incredible to see that. We need more of that in the United States, frankly, and to see just how intelligent and smart Ukrainian policy is, that it's like, okay, got it. Like, there's a lot of women in power. Like, it just completely makes sense.
That's so true.
And it's so true, and then you hear Karen's speech. She's like, I'm a doctor. What the hell are you doing? I'm a doctor. What you're saying makes literally no sense, men, who are here. And why do you want to legislate and regulate the bodies of women and childbearing persons? Like, are you out of your mind? That brings me to a segue. And the
segue alert.
Segue alert. And the segue that'll leave.
As everybody knows,
we should do how
everybody knows that segues are best, when you call them out instead of just letting them happen naturally. That's
segue alert. Here comes a segue. That'll be our segue. But as you watch the confirmation hearing of Ketanji Brown Jackson, we've had incredible coverage on MeidasTouch of it. We've had Harry Littman, incredible legal expert for LA Times, and he's prepared people for confirmation hearings. He's the perfect person to have critique it. He's done daily critiques. We've had Michael Popak and Karen Friedman-Agnifilo do a breakdown of what's taking place. We've all watched it. We've given information. But to see such a dignified person in Ketanji Brown Jackson sitting there, and then to see the type of weirdo conspiracy
swamp
creatures, out of control, Lindsey Graham acting like a freaking moron, Ted Cruz like a moron, Hawley like a moron. You got people up there it's mostly, my theory's almost true, that it's we just need to get rid of all the men in the Senate and just have women. But Marsha Blackburn kind of breaks the theory because her questioning was also very problematic. But, she's sitting there, someone who's the most accomplished person to ever sit there. And then you have these barrage of conspiracy theories thrown her way by primarily these Republican men. And Ted Cruz is literally there questioning, looking at his Twitter account as he's asking the questions to her, and they're going over some of the most bizarre stuff, Brett.
It was really hard to watch. And I don't recommend that anybody watch the hearings, but just pick out the highlights, because what I compared it to, it's like a hazing ritual. It's like a sick and twisted hazing ritual, like a fraternity. It's okay, we know you're going to be in this position, but along the way, we're going to beat you down along the way with the craziest, wackiest shit that we could throw at you.
And I'll pause you there, Brett, because it's a great observation. It is a fraternity, a male created thing. It's let's create this organization of love and support, and that's how it starts, right? And let's use the Greek alphabet. Okay, now let's lick whipped cream off each other's toes to prove how manly we are. It's what the fuck are you doing? What does that have to do with being manly and friends?
And that's what we saw. It's a hazing ritual. No one should watch it. But there are some moments that are worth pointing out. But what we saw from these hearings, it was America at its best and America at its worst. And when I say worst, I'm obviously talking about the Republicans who are just extremely racist, misogynistic, rude, frankly, just creepy and disgusting. They literally grossed me out looking at them. And I was scrolling through TikTok yesterday with my wife, actually, and Cory Booker came on, and my wife hadn't seen the clip yet. And the Cory Booker clip is unbelievable. Everybody should watch the Cory Booker clip. There's the 2-minute version that went viral. I recommend watching his full 10+ minute speech that he gave, because it is incredible. And so my wife watched that with me, and we were watching together, and she was like, wow, that's really special. Both of us, just
teared up when I watched that.
Yeah, both of us tearing up, just Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. And then you scroll, and next thing you know, it's Lindsey Graham coming on my TikTok feed with just his grimace and disgust. And my wife literally said, she's oh, he's icky. That guy's icky. And gross.
Do you know how to look up child porn? Have you seen the child porn photos?
All I'm saying is Lindsey Graham knows a lot about child porn, about where to find child porn, all the details, the ins and outs of child porn. Lindsey Graham sure knows a lot about it. But when I was watching it, though, I was also thinking we've all seen the movies of the civil rights movement, and we cringe when we see those racist American politicians portrayed on the screen. And we like to pretend we're somehow better than that now. Ugh. I can't believe those racist, disgusting people were in power in this country back then. How could that be in the United States of America? But like I'm telling you, when the movie is written about Ketanji Brown Jackson, and there will be a movie written about Ketanji Brown Jackson, the way politicians like Cruz, like Graham, like Cotton, like Hawley, like Marsha Blackburn will be portrayed will be no different than those movies. But when we're watching them, you're watching David Duke, you're watching Jefferson Davis, you're watching George Wallace. These politicians are really no different than that. They just have a 2020 kind of framing to that mindset and that attitude. And that's what we were watching during these confirmation hearings. And with all the child porn stuff, I mean, all of you witnessed the anatomy of a smear. That's how the right wing does it. You saw how it happened. You saw Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson be nominated for this position. First, they attacked her even before that they knew that she was in the role. They just attacked the fact that a black woman would be in the role. Second, they get the name, and then they've got to figure it out because she is just overwhelmingly qualified, like cannot even be refuted, her qualifications. So then they try to poke around and they go, okay, what's our talking points? You see all the people. What do we say about her? She's qualified. I don't know. What do we say? What do we say? What do we say? And then Josh Hawley decides to home in on this child porn thing. And then they go, that's it. Child porn, child porn, child porn, child porn. I mean, all I got to say is like, if the Republican Party could take the most like accomplished woman in the world and lead their supporters to believe that she's some sort of like child porn defender to score some political points for their base, if they could do that to Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, they could do that to everybody. And that's how their smears work against her. That's how their smears work against Kamala Harris. That's how their smears work against Hillary Clinton. That's how their smears work. They take conspiracy theories, they blow them up until their audience thinks that they are true, and they run with them full steam without even acknowledging the fact that accusing somebody of something so heinous and disgusting, they don't even care. They don't care about the bodies they leave along the way. They just want blood. They just want to take fucking blood. That's all they care about, so they can get some red meat for their base. And it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting.
Couldn't agree with you more, Brett. And as you look, though, into some of the issues that they do kind of delve into and they do want to talk about, we mentioned this in the last podcast, though. The criticism, this is a Marsha Blackburn criticism, of the Griswold decision, which made contraception a privacy right, that adults can avail themselves of contraception. That was a policy issue that they criticized Ketanji Brown Jackson for supporting that precedent that exists since 1965. It's funny. They were like, they asked her about the Heller decision, a decision that basically begins making the accessibility of guns easier so that a lot of these states had started putting forward rules that like, hey, in these areas, can we not have like assault weapons, and can we not have these weapons? And Heller's a decision that Second Amendment, people, by the way, I support the Second Amendment, but the Second Amendment says there should be well-regulated militias. And so we should read well-regulated and militias into the Second Amendment. I think the words actually have meaning. It's the one amendment that, there are strict textualists, these Republicans, on every issue, but the one amendment that actually like mentions regulation in it is the one that they take away the word regulation. Well, that actually didn't mean that. We're talking, let's forget the militia part. But they asked Ketanji Brown Jackson about the Heller decision, and would you be against that precedent, or do you think the precedent of Roe v. Wade is more important than the precedent of Heller? And she's like, it's like the dumbest question to ask a lawyer. She's like, they're precedent. It's not one precedent over another precedent. Like, we follow precedent in the Supreme Court. But the irony is what the Republicans didn't even realize they were doing. They were challenging the precedent in the question by asking her to support the precedent of Heller and the Second Amendment line of cases by saying that Griswold should be overturned, by saying that Roe v. Wade should be overturned. Shit, we had said that, like, I go, shit. Like, shit, we had Senator John Cornyn. I don't know where that even came from. We have Senator John Cornyn. He talked about the Obergefell case in 2015, and challenged the due process logic that legalized same-sex marriages. So that's what they're going to attack. This wasn't in the hearing, but we have Senator Mike Braun from Indiana saying that interracial marriage should be a states' rights issue, and that there should not be, a constitutional right in the United States of America to an interracial marriage. he's since attempted to try to walk that back and say he thought that he was talking about transgender rights, or he thought
No, it was a very clear question. And by the way, if that's your view,
that horrible either way. I mean,
no, and if that's your view that the state should be able to handle everything, and that constitutionally you don't think that the federal government should be able to handle anything. First off, we're going back to like the Articles of Confederation, like you're throwing away the Constitution. Second of all, then you're saying, okay, then if a state wants to re-implement slavery, they could re-implement slavery. I mean, that's the natural, not even evolution. That's exactly what they're saying in his statement. Like that's what he said. And interracial marriage was an example. And there's a reason though why he said there's a lot more horrible things too that, you know, you might disagree with, but I think it's all best left to the states. I mean, that is literally what he's saying. And even like the dumb cultural stuff that Ted Cruz and those people like to attack, like they were mad. They were trying to act all self-righteous because like a book at the school that she was affiliated with was teaching kids not to be racist. It was anti-racist. And so that was like a huge scandal to them that they were teaching people that they shouldn't be racist. Like, you know, it's like anti-racist, anti-fascist. Like these are all bad things to Republicans. Like,
I think like Ted Cruz, there's literally a photo of Ted Cruz questioning her. And he has a children's book up that I think promoted diversity behind him. And like, that was the question. Like, it looked like out of The Onion, you know, that line of questioning. But yeah, that an anti-racism position is anti-American, according to
How
them.
do these people sleep at night? Like, do they have a conscience, or are they just sleeping on big bags of money?
I think they don't have a conscience. And if you want to give you just a great example, Jordy, have you been following this Mo Brooks news that's in it? So
Mo Brooks, Mo problems.
Exactly. So Mo Brooks is a congressman in Alabama. He's running for Senator Shelby's seat in 2022. Mo Brooks was originally endorsed by Donald Trump, and Mo Brooks was a big supporter of the
even had it in his Twitter bio. He called himself MAGA Mo or something like that.
Yeah, MAGA Mo but at a recent rally, what Mo was asked, you know, Mo supports the big lie. Okay, like he's been like if you go to the editorial that was written in the Alabama.com editorial, it goes, here's the scariest thing about Mo Brooks, and it's written by Kyle Whitmire. It's an opinion column. And they said, well, you know, Mo Brooks was like a district attorney. Like, how many people did this individual prosecute? Like, his logic too to support the big lie was based on all of the rejected stuff about like the Pennsylvania, you know, missing votes, which was proven to be just a complete sham conspiracy, and the Arizona stuff. Like, who did this man prosecute? But anyway, this man supported the big lie. He
didn't just support it, Ben. He was on stage.
He simply
on stage
said,
January 6th.
But he simply said at a rally. Yeah, it's a great point, Jordy. He was on the stage.
He's the guy who said, American patriots, it's time to start. What did he say? Taking names and kicking ass. That was Mo Brooks.
that was his quote.
One of the most famous clips of the Insurrection Day.
All he said, though, recently was, we need to move past 2020 and we need to focus on 2022. That was his comment.
Fact check. Mo Brooks does not support the big lie. Fact check. Just fact. Daniel Dale fact check. Said his name.
It's a good point, though, Jordy. That would be something that we would then get fact checked, saying that Mo Brooks supports insurrection, because all of a sudden somebody like a Mo Brooks changes their position. But anyway, Donald Trump says, oh, you said we have to move past 2020. I'm rescinding my endorsement of you, and I'm endorsing the other person. And Mo Brooks, on a recent local media interview, basically says like Trump was calling him like all the time, and basically like said
in recent weeks, like this is not even around the time of the election, like still is calling Mo Brooks and saying we need to rescind the election and you need to install me as dictator, you know, is really what he would be installed at. Throw Joe Biden out and put me in now is what Trump said to Mo Brooks. And Trump called Mo Brooks for making this statement woke. He said Mo Brooks made a horrible mistake recently when he went woke and told people to put the 2020 election behind you. Now, that just shows you that all these Republican attacks are completely disingenuous. They use that as a form of cancel culture to cancel you, to cancel your opinion, by calling everything woke, by trying to shame you from supporting civil rights, from supporting healthcare, from supporting environmental issues, to try to shame you from supporting things that will better the lives of American people. Anything that goes against that, you're woke, 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 woke. You support that, you're woke. That's how they silence you. So I want you to be very, very aware every time that Republicans call something woke, call something communist. It probably means that it's pretty freaking good for you and for the country if they're attacking it, because that means that they are afraid of it and they are trying to silence you. That's what they're doing.
It's March 2022. He's still getting calls from Trump telling him to rescind the election, to institute Trump as president, to take Joe Biden out. I mean, that's lunacy. I bet Mo Brooks has put the phone on speaker before, like with the family around, like, come on, crazy Uncle Charlie's calling again. Let's see what he has this time. And he just picks up and the guy just rants and rants like a lunatic, but it's Mo Brooks' fault. He fed the beast. Now it's his fault, his problem.
Leaders lead, and it's not fait accompli that this idiot, this monstrosity, idiot, corrupt Donald Trump can get away with it. The fact that he intimidates and bullies people, really one speaks to the strength of the Democratic Party, that we just stand up. We're like, if that were to be a phone call to Representative Schiff, if that were to be a phone call to, any Democratic member of Congress, Ted Lieu, I could just name 100, but, Donald Trump were to say, hey, here's what I got to do. I would say this: don't you ever call me again. Don't you ever call me again. I'm going to report you now to law enforcement, and don't you dare ever call me again and say any of those things. And then you do that with your colleagues, and then you get rid of this cancer in the party and Donald Trump. You don't let that ridiculous stupidity metastasize. And that's exactly what we saw at these hearings with Ketanji Brown Jackson. We just saw a stupid party. We saw a ridiculous party. We saw a conspiracy-laden party. We saw a corrupt party. We did not see a party with a modicum of intelligence. Although I would say this, Ben Sasse, at least, I don't even know what he was talking about. It was like, he's so lost in there sometimes. But at least Ben Sasse, I think projected a modicum of intelligence that I could say, look, sounds like a smart guy.
And he called him out. He said, despite the jackassery, I think was the term he used, of my colleagues. And he said it like right after Ted Cruz spoke. So at least he called it out. He's one sensible guy in this crazy conspiracy party. But what I want you to do, and I want you to also show family members, show friends, to show them the clip of Cory Booker. Show them what Cory Booker said and show them how Ketanji Brown Jackson reacted. Then show them a clip of Lindsey Graham or Ted Cruz or one of these nut jobs from the same hearing and ask them, which is the America that you want to live in? These are your choices right now. You could live in this crazy conspiracy, disgusting America, or you could live in this America of optimism, this America of hope, this America of always striving to be greater than we are today. Those are our two options, and you got to pick your lane. And I know which side of the lane that I stand on. I know which side of the lane that our listeners stand on. So now we need to make that comparison to the people at large and say, listen, these are our choices. Make your pick. Choose a side right now.
We have great guests, as we talked about on the top of the pod. We have Elena Sutnik as our first guest that we will be bringing on the podcast. But before bringing in Olena, I want to talk about some fast growing trees.
I'm excited to talk about fast growing trees. So
I really am excited to talk about fast growing trees. Awesome.
Because I just ordered.
What are you talking about? Fast growing trees. Get ready.
Get ready. Because I just ordered a fast growing tree. So full disclosure, I just ordered a lemon tree from Fast Growing Trees, and I'm so excited to get some fresh citrus up in this house. Spring and summer are the seasons for finally getting outdoors, for entertaining, pool parties, barbecues. But if your yard looks like a plant cemetery, you're just not going to enjoy it as much. Get your place looking like a resort, and that is easy with Fast Growing Trees. When it comes to caring for your plants, know-how matters. That's why FastGrowingTrees.com's experts curate thousands of plant varieties that will thrive in your specific climate, location, and needs. There's no waiting lines and no messy messy cars from hauling plants all over town because you order online and never over the phone, and your plants are shipped to your door within 1 to 2 days. Plus, their growing and care advice is available 24/7. Whether you're looking for increased privacy, shade, or adding some natural beauty to your yard, Fast Growing Trees have the perfect plants and expertise to help you find them. Even if you've never had a green thumb, they'll make you feel like you do. 1 million home gardeners have already seen what fastgrowingtrees.com can do for them. I'm telling you, I love fastgrowingtrees.com. If I could do it, and this is not my expertise at all,
You don't
I
have the
promise
green
you
thumb?
can do it. And it's super. I don't have a green thumb, but like I said, maybe I do. But
Maybe
what was cool
you
about
do.
Fast Growing Trees is you could tell them, like, I live in this specific area, and they'll give you the plants, the trees that work best in your city, judging by the weather and everything. So it's really tailored to you, and you can get some really great stuff. And I've had so many experiences, like going to the department stores and like hauling like trees and stuff in my cars that are way too small for the stuff. I never want to do that again. And with Fast Growing Trees, I do not have to. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com/MeidasTouch right now. You'll get 15% off your entire order. Plus, with their 30-day Alive and Thrive guarantee, you can trust everything is going to be healthy for years to come. So remember, get 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/MeidasTouch. That's fastgrowingtrees.com/MeidasTouch. Make sure you spell out the full MeidasTouch on that.
Fast Growing Trees. I know Fast Growing Trees is going to be a massive hit for the Meidas Mighty. I can see the photos of the trees coming in now. We can follow our trees growing together.
Ooh.
Tree diary.
Tree competition. Everything. So if I get competitive with the trees, like, you're going to have a real issue of whose trees grow faster, Brett or Jordy. Brett, talk to us about Trade Coffee, please, will you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because Trade Coffee is, guys, one of my favorites. This episode tailored for me or something. I just don't even know, because most coffee is dull, stale, and questionably sourced. But it's easy to get stuck in a rut and drink what you always have. Instead of standing in front of all the options in your grocery store, let Trade Coffee help you find something that you love. Trade sells the freshest roasted and ethically sourced beans from America's best independent roasters. They ship free to you as often as you like, whole or ground, whether you're a coffee nerd or just want a better daily cup. Trade's real coffee experts test over 400 roasts and use technology to match you to your ideal coffee based on your preferences and brewing method. So take the coffee quiz to get started. Trade Coffee guarantees that you'll love your first bag, or they'll replace it for free. Trade has been featured in the New York Times, Wired, GQ, and has delivered over 5 million bags of coffee. Their subscription is no hassle. You can skip shipments, change your frequency, or cancel at any time. If you're a coffee lover like me, you got to get Trade Coffee. I mean, fresh bags delivered right to your door. For our listeners right now, Trade Coffee is offering a total of $20 off your first 3 bags when you go to drinktrade.com/Meidas. So to get started, take their quiz at drinktrade.com/Meidas and start your journey to the perfect cup. That's drinktrade.com/MEIDAS for $20 off your first 3 bags.
Let's bring in Elena Sutnik. This interview is a pre-recorded interview that we just did yesterday. Obviously, given the fact that she's in a war zone, we wanted to make sure we did it at a safe time and location for her. Please forgive the fact that I may look personally a little disheveled. We were trying to all accommodate time, so I think I'm straight off the Peloton when I took the interview. For those audio listeners, don't worry about it. For those visual listeners, my apologies. Let's bring in Elena Sutnik. We are joined by Olena Sutnik, a Ukrainian attorney and politician. She was a member of the Ukrainian parliament from 2014 to 2019, serves as a permanent delegate to the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. And Sutnik is a human rights defender and advisor, Deputy Prime Minister advisor. Welcome to the pod.
Hi, thank you.
First and foremost, Elena, how are you doing? And are you able to tell us as much as you can tell us where you are right now and what's going on by you?
So I'm living something like between border of Ukraine and Poland because I'm dealing with humanitarian aid and everything what like connected to the refugees issues, and also helping our Ukrainians to somehow accommodate them in other circumstances in a new country in Poland for, of course, I hope very short period of time. I believe that they had to leave country temporary. But of course, it is frustrated, people stressed. They don't know what to do. They really feel like they lost everything. For many Ukrainians, life divided before 24th of February, when large-scale war started, and after 24th February. For me, I know that war been existing for many days. Today is 2,953rd day, not 54th day of war, Russian war against Ukraine, because it started since Crimea was annexed, and then it was Donbass, and now it is whole Ukraine. And it seems that Putin, he is not going to stop. He aims to destroy Ukrainians, as a nation, not just our state, not just territories, not just schools, hospitals, or residential buildings. He wants to destroy us as human beings, and it is, of course, frightening a lot. He is definitely trying to commit genocide against Ukrainians. And of course, I didn't have any, any expectations about him that he would stop since he annexed Crimea. I did expect that he is going to attack Ukraine, but I didn't expect that it is going to be so cruel, cynical, and absolutely nothing compared to war. It's more destroying people, destroying without any hesitation, without any division between, for example, civilian and military, just destroying Ukrainians. And today we have this awful figure, 118 children already been killed during this 1 month of war. And I hardly can imagine how these women and men who lost their children, how they feel. So compared to them, I'm okay. I'm occupied with many things, how to help my country to win. And I really want to come back home as soon as possible.
And let's go back a little bit too, and you touched on the history here. I think Americans have been following what's been going on recently, but I think most Americans don't know Ukraine's, really, it's very recent history as you talk about the annexation of Crimea when the war really began. And you gave this TED-style talk at Stanford a few years back. I would tell everybody to go and listen to that, about pro bono legal services that you provided to the Heavenly Hundred, who are the victims of Maidan, who were part of the civil protests that led to the Ukrainian Revolution in 2014. Can you tell us about this work, if you can, and just maybe give our listeners some background on the Ukrainian Revolution of 2014 and how that relates to today?
Yeah, of course, because I spent a lot of months in United States, and my feeling is that just now people realized that Ukraine is Ukraine and it's not Russia, and it's nothing that we are different countries, absolutely different countries, absolutely different mindsets, and that one country wants to destroy another one. Yes, Revolution of Dignity, it was, by the way, revolution, first of all, of young people, of many people took part in this revolution, but young people, they used to be, this heart of this revolution, or blood of this revolution, because mainly young Ukrainians, they wanted to be involved in Euro integration. They wanted Ukraine to be a member of European Union. And when our president that days, Yanukovych, who was very connected to Russian authorities, to Putin, he just at the last moment he didn't want to sign Euro integration agreement with European Union. And that was the signal that something is wrong and that Ukraine can move to a wrong direction. And young students, they went out to the street and they started protest. And at night, it was very cold night. They've been staying on the central square of Kiev, and the police just beated them. They cruelly trying to, just to suppress them and to stop this protest. It happened at night, and in the morning, it was like news all over the world that students been cruelly beaten, and that it was like very cruel action from the police side. And in one day, more than 100,000 people went out to the streets and they started protests. And it's how Revolution of Dignity started. And then several months we've been staying on Maidan, different quantity of people, from 10,000 to 50,000. It was different, but we've been always staying there, protesting and insisting that we want the European Union, we want to be in Europe, and we've been fighting for this. And at the last days of these protests, like some civilians been killed, they've been just shot, and it's still not investigated. There is no verdict on this. So after 8 years, we still don't know the names. We know who gave this order. We know that the main, who is the main figures: our former president Yanukovych, our former minister of internal affairs Zakharchenko, but they are not in jail, they're in Russia. And they're enjoying their lives, and more than 100 people that day died just within several hours. So then this president, but he it's very hard even to tell president. So this guy Yanukovych, he ran away.
That's how we feel about Trump, by the way.
We hope he'd run away, though.
But at least he didn't commit such a crime. I think that it was really something unbelievable that days. Yeah, and because he ran away, Russians, they just started this special operation of destabilizing Ukraine, and they started from Crimea. So within several months, they annexed Crimea, and then they helped. I'm sure that it was just, their people, special services, who started the special operation in Donbass. Then they just gave them military, but without military signs that it is Russian army. And these people, they just controlled about, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 million people territory. And this territory was occupied for 8 years. So we managed to elect new parliament. So I used to be the member of that parliament after Maidan. It was the new generation of politicians, mainly like more than 50% of them. They've been newcomers, a lot of young people. And it was a very hard period of time because the war started. Country was like ruined with previous president and his regime, and it was very hard to rebuild everything, rebuild army, rebuild country, and continue this Euro integration reforms. But we still try to do this, and I think we've been successful. Then Zelensky came with new parliament and also newcomers, and they continue to reform country. sometimes successfully, sometimes not, but still they had this Euro integration path, and they've been trying to build a European country. And I think that Putin, he just realized that Europe in Ukraine, I mean, European Union in Ukraine, European values in Ukraine, democracy in Ukraine, it is the main threat for his regime. That's why he decided that there is only one way how to survive and stay in power is to destroy Ukraine.
President Zelensky's obviously been given a lot of credit as a hero. I want to ask you about if you knew that Zelensky had it in him to be this world hero. But first, what people aren't talking about a lot, though, which is an observation that I made, though, that I think is one of the strengths of Ukraine. You mentioned this whole new kind of young generation of leaders who came into parliament. One of the observations I had when I looked at the photos of parliament, though, was that there was a lot of young women leaders in Ukrainian parliament like yourself. And to me, that is one of the main reasons why it was why there was such strength there and why there was such unity. I mean, is my observation right? I was looking around, I was saying, this is incredible. This is actually there, more than I ever see in the United States or other even European countries. There's a lot of young women who have positions of power in parliament.
Yeah, that's true. And by the way, a lot of young women, not a lot, but enough young women in government. So I'm advisor to Deputy Prime Minister, and she is younger than me. So she's like 36 something, and she's very smart, very brave, active lady. And I can tell you that Ukraine, it is like, it is a center of women leadership. It's since our history, women, they've been always on these territories. They've been very independent and very active with a lot of leadership in their minds and in their actions. And we're still trying to empower young women, to go to the politics and just even to army or to be volunteers and human rights defenders, NGO activists. So among these people, a lot of women. So now I'm working with volunteers, and I would say because men, they have to fight. Women, they are just organizing everything. They are doing very difficult and I would say dangerous job, but they are absolutely equal and the same as men. So they don't afraid. Many of them decided to go to the civil defense units. So it's Ukraine. There is no difference if you are women or men. Of course, there are still a lot of challenges and some, I would say, misunderstandings and sexism in our politics. But, young women, they are very brave. And I think after this war, when we win, and we will definitely win, it would be even more young women, not just in the parliament, everywhere, because we would need to rebuild country in all the areas, and we would need a lot of leadership.
Okay, Elena. So I'm going to ask you the question that Ben was hinting at the beginning of his question, which was, did you know that President Zelensky had it in him? I mean, he's become this world hero, just so incredibly inspiring to everybody. And he really has met the moment, not only met the moment, he's exceeded the moment.
If you ask me like 2 months ago, or you would tell me this story 2 months ago, I wouldn't believe, because like he's nice guy. He's very smart and very active, but I didn't expect that he is also so strong. I mean, inside, because you need to realize that it is very frustrating and very scary when you just living in a peaceful city, and maybe you are like, I don't know, you're president or you're member of parliament or you're just ordinary person, but the fear is the same. And I remember this moment when I woke up at 5 in the morning because I heard these explosions. And for the first minutes, I was thinking like, oh my God, it is like, it's just nightmare. I can't believe. Like I did expect war, but I didn't expect that they are going to attack capital city, that they are going to attack one of the oldest city in the Europe. It is like a huge heritage in Kiev. So I was really not just scared. I was shocked. I couldn't believe. And he's not military guy. He didn't have any like experience in defense or military issues. So I think what he is doing now, it is first of all absolutely unprecedented. This, unique inner mind and emotional intelligence, when even you don't know maybe from practical point of view what to do, but from emotional point of view, from value-based point of view, you are definitely know what you are doing. You are definitely know that you are not going to give up on this. And he is giving a lot of spirit to other people, especially young generation. I'm sure that a lot of volunteers who decided to go to the army, they decided to go because they looked at him. Okay, he's a similar guy as I am, for example. He never like been military guy, but he could stay in Kiev even with shelling, with all the danger. So why I can't do the same? This is a very important thing which we didn't have for ages in our politics. I mean, in the world politics, not just Ukrainian politics, in the world politics. It is the leadership to be an example, leadership by example. When you are not just talking about the values, but you are doing something yourself, you are sacrificing yourself, you are risking yourself. And then, of course, I think that the whole world, they started to believe what he's talking about. And they started to support Ukraine. That's very important, because my worries was that I know Russians, I know how their propaganda machine works. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of means how to bring this disinformation to the world. And I was really afraid that they are going to undermine Ukraine. And it would be very hard to get support. It's still hard to get support. People used to, they are getting used to war, because it is psychologically, you just emotionally exhausted and you are starting to get used. But I think that president, he's helping country a lot with this spirit and with bringing a lot of perspective what is happening in Ukraine to the world.
You mentioned this like information war, and I think Ukraine is very much winning this information war. We're seeing the power of it, and we're seeing the power of these images with Zelensky going on TV, speaking in front of parliament, speaking in front of Congress, the videos that are being released, his constant communication. I mean, it's been incredibly effective. Ukraine is clearly capturing the hearts and minds of the world here, but we're seeing at the same time, like you said, the Kremlin tightening its grip on their own media. And when you look at polls that are coming out of Russia, you see that 70, 80, 90% of people believe Putin, that he's going in to denazify Ukraine. I guess it's a two-part question, and I'll ask you the first one, which is, how can we break through Putin's propaganda? I know there are a lot of even like family members that people in Ukraine have family in Russia, and I've heard stories of even their own families not believing them. And so how do we cut through that, in your opinion?
First of all, it is I need also to mention very dangerous narrative which we have now in many countries, even in United States. I've been disputing with some like experts on TV that it is Putin decision, but poor Russian citizens, they can't do anything, they just like absolutely, they are just victims of what is happening, and they are suffering because of the sanctions. Listen, we are living not in 18th or 19th century. We have internet, they have internet. They have the same iPhones as you or me have. They have the same YouTube. And even if they blocked Facebook or Instagram, We have VPN, and you can enter whenever you want. You can read whatever you want, if you want. The problem is that these people, they don't want. They like this narrative. They like that Putin want to build empire, even if it's going to take like 1,000 of lives. They don't care. I remember what happened with Crimea. Look at these videos from stadium like 5 days ago, I think last Friday. I mean, from Moscow, where they've been like applauding to the annexation of the land of another country, where they've been applauding when Putin said, we are going to annex more. So do you believe that these people want somebody to break through? They absolutely like the situation. And also you need to realize that Russia, I mean, Russian people, mainly, they are very poor people. So they, like in Moscow, of course, people, they have, or they enjoy more or less civilized lives. But if you go to the small cities, small villages, they are very poor. And the only thing what they have to proud with this narrative or absolutely pure myth that Russia is a like powerful state. Guys, look at your refrigerators. I don't know, look at your pockets and what cars you have or what roads do you have. So what kind of life are you living? Putin just lines them. He's giving them like, you know, bread and entertainment, because for them this war, it is entertainment. He created this lie that he's like saving somebody from something. I don't know what he's like doing, like pure fascist, trying to say to his people that he is destroying fascists. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous in 21st century that these people, they want to understand something else. If they really want, they can do this. They can go to the internet, watched videos from Mariupol, watched videos from Kiev, watched videos how Russian tanks destroy civilians, watch video how Russian bombs destroyed hospitals, you know, and then just, you even don't need critical mind. Just watch this, but they don't want. They don't want. It's not just how to do this. You can't do this. You can't change somebody's mind if he doesn't want. This is a problem.
Yeah, bread and circuses, you know, as we call it, is you know, tale as old as civilization. Now, how do we now approach, though? We have seen videos of those Russian citizens who have taken to the streets. We've seen the videos of the Russians who have been holding blank signs and have been whisked away by Putin's police. Is there any obligation for us, you think, to support them, to defend those voices who are speaking out against Putin? As a human rights defender, do you think we have any obligation to amplify them, or, you know, do anything to help those people who are risking their lives in Russia?
Absolutely. There are like a few, but still like I would say like-minded people. So I mean, people who believe in democracy, who believe in human rights, and of course, we should support them somehow. How? I think that the main problem, of course, Putin and his regime, because like if you are not going to destroy the regime, it would be another Putin. It would be Shoigu or somebody else, you know. So to destroy regime, you need to find the way how to block all the resources to support this regime. I mean, economic resources. Yes, these people maybe would suffer the same as other Russians, but in the very end, they have chance that something would be changed within 2 or 3 years. Otherwise, you can look what they are doing. You can look how Ukraine is suffering in this war and losing people's lives, and just observe this, you know, send condolences, and warnings, but in the very end of the day, both would suffer. So I can see the only one way how to protect them is to help Ukraine to defeat Putin, to help Ukraine to defeat his regime, because I believe that if he's going to lose this war, if we are going to defeat him, then the regime would the next step, it would be collapse of this regime, definitely.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. Next, let's get into the conditions on the ground in Ukraine. I mean, it's clear that Ukraine is winning. You said it yourself before, Ukraine is winning. What are you seeing actually being there, and what is needed to win, both, from Ukraine and also from the world?
Ukraine is winning, but we are paying for this like huge price. Of course, we are losing people. We are losing territories. I mean, not from the point of view of controlling territories. I mean, from the point of view ecologically. So we have a lot of problems with nuclear threat. You know, this is not just because of Ukraine. It is because of the whole Europe. We need to do something to stop him as soon as possible. Because if they are going by chance attack something like nuclear plants, oh my God, I even just can't imagine what can happen, So yes, we do what we can do on our territories, but our resources, they are limited, even human resources. So what do we need? First of all, weapon. But strategically, we don't need just weapon to defend ourselves. We need weapon to defeat Putin. It is a little bit different strategies, because to defend ourselves, tactical weapons or just like something like stingers, it is enough. But when we are talking about defeating Putin, you need something equal to what they have. Especially, I'm talking about these airstrikes. What you can do against their rockets. It's very hard, to afford this. And they continue to attack, and they have plenty of them. So this is a main problem, that we are not equal from the point of view of counter-attacking. So we are doing the best. What they're doing, it's sometimes even miracles. They have a lot of spirit, a lot of motivation. But to win war, you accept motivation and spirit, and professional people, you need equipment, you need weapons, you need resources. And the main problem, I heard different experts, some of them been telling more that as long as this war is continuous, Russians, they are becoming weaker. No, it's not true. We are giving them chance to rebuild the strategy. We are giving them chance, to strengthen their positions, and we absolutely realize that they still have more resources, military resources, to employ into Ukraine. And they're gathering army in Syria. They still pushing Belarus to participate physically in this war, not just giving the positions, but also to participate with their army. So, and I believe that time, it's not our friend. Time is our enemy, because we have 1 month of the war, and economy didn't work this month. A lot of people been replaced. A lot of people died. A lot of people injured. A lot of humanitarian problems, social problems, relocated people, destroyed infrastructure. So I believe that time is our enemy. That's why we should civilized world should change strategy. I know that somebody may be tired of this, but close the sky, save airspace for Ukraine, because it is one of the main problems. We are very strong on the ground, but we have problems with our airspace. More military support, and it should be not just equipment, it should be strategic weapon with which we can defeat Putin. And of course, it should be understanding that after this war, I don't know, we're still counting the losses, but it would be billions of dollars to renovate Ukraine. And we should think about this now, and we should bring this guy to the justice, because we've been talking a lot after Second World War, never again, but it seems we have war again, and it is World War. It's not just Ukraine, because all the world would be involved. Already European Union destabilized with migration crisis. They threatened by Russians, and we don't know what to expect from Putin. So I believe the main strategy to defeat him as soon as possible, to provide Ukraine with additional weapons, and to close the sky.
You ended one of your talks with these prophetic words you wrote, where you said, the path of change is very long, and you need to be, first of all, very patient, second, very brave, and third, passionate about what you are doing. Otherwise, we pay our price. And it's obvious that you and the Ukrainian people are like living these words every single day. We thank you for your bravery. And is there any final words you want to say to, our audience? We have a large European audience. We have a lot of people who listen in Australia and across the world. Any final words you'd have to, just the average podcast listener out there who's hearing you, who feels inspired, who wants to know, what can we do as citizens of the world?
Yeah, of course, I want to tell you. First of all, I want to tell everyone who, even just with their thoughts and praying, support Ukrainians. Thank you so much. It's very important for us, because my main fear is that this world just will tired of this war, and it would be very hard for us to defeat one of the craziest and cruelest guys in the world if we're going to stay alone. That's why it's very important for the whole world to remember that Ukrainians, we are not fighting for ourselves, like help Ukraine, save the Europe. It's definitely like this. And the second one, which is also very important, I think it is a crucial moment for the world, because the whole world order collapsed. And now it depends, where are we going in this world? If we want stability, we need to put this guy, I don't know, it would be Gag court, Kharkiv court, Kiev court, it doesn't matter, tribunal. It should be justice, he should be punished as because he committed the worst crimes, war crimes in the world. I don't think that something the same happened before. Syria, it is his fault. Moldova, it is his fault. Georgia, it is his fault. Ukraine, it is his fault. And if we want to stop this list, we need to stop it together. So people need to remember that politicians, they always depend on you. You think that you are not influential, it's not true. When you go out to the streets, or when you demand from your congressmen to do something, they would do this, because you are the main one. You are the decision makers when you vote for them. So please, it is a crucial moment. Time matters, and it is time to support Ukraine. And I really believe that together, as a human beings, we can change this world for better. We can stop this war. We can defeat this guy. We can destroy this regime, and then think about new world order where prosperity would be the main condition, and peace would be the main value.
Elena Sutnik, thank you so much for joining us on the MeidasTouch podcast.
Thank you.
It's a great interview with Elena Sutnik. Welcome back to the MeidasTouch podcast. I mean, maybe one of the greatest interviews we've ever done.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was traveling yesterday, so I wasn't able to make the interview. My first time listening along with the audience, and you guys did a phenomenal job. And oh my goodness, she is just fantastic.
Thanks, Jordy. I think we need to be uplifting right now more Ukrainian voices. We need to really be speaking with people who are impacted by what's going on there, more so than, necessarily analysts and people like that who are speaking from a distance, but to actually speak to somebody who's on the ground, speak to somebody who is in parliament. I think Elena, truly one of the most impressive people I've ever talked to. So,
and it really humanizes the situation, because so much of the coverage, you see it on CNN, for example, they have a big board where they show a map of Ukraine. And they say stuff like, and right after the break, we'll get back to our big board and tell you who's winning the war. And it's like, these are lives at risk, and they make it feel like it's a football game at times. And it's really disgusting.
There was one part of what Elena said there, Jordy, to your point, that really kind of struck me. She said, when we saw the annexation of Crimea, which was the true start of the war, she goes, I anticipated that there was going to be a war in some form or fashion against the whole of Ukraine, as we're now seeing. It's like, what I didn't anticipate, though, is that the war would really be a war on civilians, that the war would be a war attacking the people. It's not a conventional war. I mean, Russia's losing the conventional war. And she mentions it in her interview. She says, we're losing territory. She goes, that doesn't mean we're actually losing the territory to Russia. That's not what's going on. They are literally destroying the city so that the city doesn't even exist anymore. There are no more buildings. It's just land. And so people aren't there anymore. And that's what she says she cannot anticipate about the way the war would be fought. And I think what's really important is her messages. Don't just get used to the fact that there's a war and get jaded and stop the support because, all right, we're in month 2, we get it. Like, we need to remain focused and vigilant and constantly supporting Ukraine and the Ukrainian people. And I think to all of the journalists out there who listen to this podcast, I would say this too. I think there needs to be a lot more attention to the incredible Ukrainian women leaders like Olena and others, Deputy Prime Minister who said she worked with, who's younger than her, she said. I want to hear more of those stories out there. I'm proud that at MeidasTouch we can elevate and amplify the voices and the true stories, but I encourage other media to do the same. I want to talk to you about our partner Masterworks before bringing in State Senator Karen Berg. Alternative assets are no longer optional. That's what JP Morgan declared in a recent release, because while a typical 60-40 portfolio anticipates only 4% returns, alternative assets like oil, commodities, and art could still go up in value. So investing in them means you're making inflation work for you. You may be surprised to hear me naming art as an asset, but actually art has a price appreciation of 23% when inflation is above 3%, and it's largely uncorrelated to other assets. So, putting it simply, experts are saying invest in alternatives, and art is an alternative that does well in periods of inflation and market uncertainty. Now, how do you add art to your portfolio? With Masterworks. It's the first platform that enables everyday people to invest in art at a price point that works for you. Our listeners will get special priority access. Skip the wait list. Just go to masterworks.art/Meidas. That's masterworks.art/Meidas. See important regulations, disclosures at masterworks.io/CD. I love Masterworks. I invest in a lot of the artwork there. And then I told you what I do is I print out the photos of the artwork that I've invested in, and I put it on the wall. And then I'm
actually
like,
genius.
I own a Monet.
It's a very funny thing
but I really enjoy it, and it's fun. And, it is a way to structure your investments in a way that could be fun and interesting. And now let's bring in Kentucky State Senator Karen Berg. Before doing that, we got to play the video that went viral. Brett, play the video of Kentucky State Senator Karen Berg.
I'm a diagnostic radiologist, and diagnostic radiologists historically and in many places in this state still do all of the first trimester OB ultrasound. So I am extraordinarily personally familiar with the development of a fetus in the womb. And for you to sit here and say that at 15 weeks, a fetus has a functional heart, a 4-chamber heart that can survive on its own is fallacious. That is not true. There is no viability. I look around at my colleagues on this committee. I am the only woman on this podium right now. I am the only physician sitting on this podium. This bill is a medical sham. It does not follow medicine. It does not even purport to listen to medicine. And for each and every one of my colleagues to be so willing to cast an I vote when what you are doing is putting your finger, putting your knee, putting a gun to women's heads. You are killing women because abortion will continue. Women will continue to have efficacy over their own body, whether or not you make it legal. I vote no, and I really, really apologize to the people in Kentucky that we are spending this much time and this much energy when we have families in poverty. We have single women heading households in poverty at a higher rate than any other group in the state. And you all are not addressing that. You all are making it worse. Thank you.
Well, you've seen the video, and now we are honored to have Kentucky State Senator Karen Berg join the podcast. Karen Berg, as you know, is a diagnostic radiologist. You heard her on the video discuss her credentials. She was elected to the Kentucky State Senate, the 26th district, as a Democrat in a special election held on June 23rd of 2020. Senator Berg, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, and thank you guys very much for having me here. Really appreciate it.
We are honored to have you here, and we saw that video, which went viral because I think it hit a chord in Americans who care. Americans who see the issue, who care about the science, who care about compassion. And I want to obviously get into what you said in the video, but I want to rewind a little bit because your special election was a very contentious one. It wasn't a foregone conclusion that we were going to have a Democratic state senator from the 26th district. So can you maybe speak to that race, the opposition that you had, and how it was that a Democrat in a fairly Republican district came to win?
Yeah, let me go back to the beginning. I was actually a political science major, and I was pre-law. I was going to become a judge and change the world. That's what I wanted to do. And then I worked for legal aid for a summer while I was in college. And at the end of the summer, they said, Karen, you can do anything you want. Don't do this. They were in desperate straits. This was in the late 80s, early 90s. They had no funding. They couldn't. And I listened to them. I took all the prerequisites for medical school in 1 year. I went back, I applied to medical school, and I have loved being a physician. I still love practicing medicine. But, I don't know, about 5 years ago, they tried to pass a bathroom bill here in Kentucky, which would significantly affect where my child, honestly, could go pee in school. And we went up there to testify against it, my son and I. And I'm sitting there looking at these people on the education committee, and I'm thinking, who are these guys that they get to make the rules for the rest of us? How did they get elected? Who are they and why are they in charge? And it was basically at that moment that I thought, you know what, Karen, you can do it now. You can go back and you can do what it was you wanted to do. And it was my younger son who told me, Mom, if you're going to run for office here in Kentucky, there's a program called the Merge. It takes Democratic women and it trains them how to run for office. And the interesting thing is men sort of feel like they already have the chops, like they know what they're doing. Women don't necessarily feel that way. We feel like we have to be trained, be educated, be capable, and be competent before we just go out there and do what we do. So I applied for a Merge and I got accepted, and I completed the training. And it was during that time that I realized I was sitting in a Senate district with a Republican senator that 90% of the people in my neighborhood didn't even know his name. Been there for 26 years, most of the time had run unopposed. And I just said, you know what? I'm taking him on. I'm going for it. And I did. I won my primary because I did have opposition in my first Democratic primary. I won my primary. We went on to the general. And, you know, you're talking about a majorly majority Republican district. I lost, but honestly, I didn't lose by that much. I forget what the numbers were, but it was an extremely good showing. And about a year and a half later, the senator that I ran against and lost to decided to resign. And, you know, between you and me and the wall, I think he knew when he resigned that I would take that seat. And I don't think he minded. But I did have Republican opposition, some strong Republican opposition. We were in the middle of COVID, so it was a very strange campaign. My kid and one of his fraternity brothers came down to Louisville. You know, we were in lockdown, and we just basically worked out of the house and ran this special and won 57%, I believe is the number, 57% of a significant majority Republican district. And basically my platform was people who care about people. People who just, you know, I mean, if good people don't stand up, then we're lost. And I really felt that way. I felt like we were at a point in the country where people who cared about people needed to step up and say, this is what we believe in. This is what your elected officials are going to work towards. And I'm going to be one of them. And I can't tell you how much of an absolute honor it has been to have this platform, to have this voice. Even if you aren't in a majority, which we are in a far, far minority here in the state, people still get to know you. People still get to hear you. People start understanding who you are and what you care about, and it makes a difference. I am convinced it makes a difference.
You know, it's a very interesting lesson for Democrats to take, because here you are, you're in Kentucky. You're in a significantly, overwhelmingly Republican district, and you are very passionate about a lot of issues and can probably speak to them, especially ones that have medical knowledge at very scientific levels. But where you found the important thing running in Kentucky, in your district, was connecting with people, you know, as a good human on values. And sometimes I think we see, and I would love to get your thoughts about this, Democrats have a lot of great policies, and it's important that we explain and express and implement those policies. But sometimes I think where Democrats don't put in the sufficient amount of work, it's just connecting with people and explaining, I'm here for you. I care for you. I'm running because of you. Meanwhile, you have Republicans who lie about that and then implement the policies that harm the people they say that to.
And the messaging can sometimes be so convoluted. It's like, I don't know how to explain it, but all people really want is a soundbite. And when you need to get into the weeds and look at the details, sometimes it's really hard to get out to the public. It really is. It can be. I will do my absolute best never to stand on the floor or stand in committee and say something that I know is not true. I will not do that. But I do have colleagues on the other side who do intentionally do that. Intentionally. I mean, it happened yesterday with this joint resolution that we passed to end the pandemic, which I have no problem passing a joint resolution to end the pandemic 2 weeks ago. And I have a huge, huge problem in that it's going to cut off food stamps for so many people in this state who are still desperately reliant on them. So to me, it's just, You're doing nothing. I mean, we have no COVID mandates in the state right now whatsoever. Nothing. No mask mandates, no vaccine requirements, unless you're in healthcare. We have nothing. So ending this Senate joint resolution to quote unquote end the pandemic has no implication in anybody's lives except to cut off SNAP benefits. Why would you do that? Unless you just really don't care about these people.
Karen, you talked about when you were, 5 years ago or so, when you went to that committee meeting, the education committee meeting, and you looked and you saw guys. And I think you used that word intentionally. You saw men who don't know what they're doing. And there's not a great deal of diversity, within the legislator. It was, and that's on an education issue. But when you spoke in the committee on the, on the bill SB 321, which would prohibit abortions after 15 weeks, not only were you the only physician as a diagnostic radiologist, as you mentioned in the video, you do all first trimester OB ultrasound. So this stuff. That is what you do for a living. But there's no other physicians there, yet alone physicians who actually do physician work in this specific area. And it was all men. And you were speaking to them and saying, what in the world are you doing? And, we've obviously seen the video and we know what you said, but can you walk us through the process kind of leading up to that speech, when you were delivering the speech? Did you know afterwards that it was going to have that kind of level of impact? Is that kind of classic State Senator Karen Berg?
It can be, but honestly, guys, no. I mean, I knew what was in the bill. I knew what the bill was going to do. I knew that the worst bill was yet to come. I mean, the worst of the worst we're supposed to be hearing in health and welfare tomorrow. And that's the bill that would literally stop abortion in the state of Kentucky now. I think part of it was just frustration. I've lived this. I've seen this from the time I was a young child. My dad was a surgeon. My mom was a nurse. My mom volunteered at Planned Parenthood. And, honestly, my dad was extremely pro-woman. And I've been taught from a very young age what happens when women don't have access to safe, legal abortion. And I've seen it. I mean, I've seen women coming in septic and dying. They should have known they had a choice, and they should have known where to go, and they should have been able to get help without putting their lives on the line. Guys, I mean, I've had people I work with talk to me about how their moms died when they were 4 years old because they had a 2-year-old brother, and the parents were married. They couldn't afford another child. They just didn't know how to feed it. And now they're both orphans. I mean, I'm getting these type of emails from people all over the country. Women remember. Women, they say people that don't know history are doomed to repeat it. This is history, guys. This is our own medical history here in the United States. Please, let's not ignore it just because you have a moral view that is different than mine. Just because, I tell people over and over and over, you don't believe in abortion, don't have one. As a legislator, I will do everything I can to support you and your family. As a physician, I will do everything I can to keep you safe and happy. You don't believe in it, don't have it. But for those women who want to be able to make that choice for themselves, this is an extremely personal decision. You and what you believe has no place in that decision. It's not even, and I don't want to get all controversial. Like with the COVID vaccine, people are saying it's my body, I don't want it, okay? The difference is with a COVID vaccine, not only are you protecting yourself, you're protecting other people. There's a societal cost. This is a very, very personal decision that belongs to the woman and her partner and her physician and whoever else she feels she needs to include in this decision. But it is not up to our legislators to say, we think this is wrong, you can't do it. It's not, it's their wrong. It's not my wrong. If that makes any sense.
That makes sense. And what doesn't make sense is what the Supreme Court appears it's poised to do in Dobbs v. Mississippi. And Dobbs v. Mississippi is another 15-week ban on abortion. Oral arguments suggest that that ban is going to be upheld, and if not, Roe v. Wade is going to be overturned.
And this bill, the one I spoke against was intentionally designed to mimic Mississippi as closely as possible. 49th in the country for education and economic development, Mississippi, 49th. And our job here, what we're doing is intentionally emulating Mississippi so that if the Supreme Court rules in their favor, Kentucky automatically, unequivocally falls under that ruling, and we are done, have to do nothing else to stop abortion here.
Yeah, and that's what I think people need to know, that it's coordinated. So
Coordinated.
the Republican legislators that you see, whether it's in Missouri, whether you see it in Tennessee, whether you see it in Texas, whether you see it in Kentucky, I could keep going on. They see the writing on the walls from the Federalist Society judges who have always spoken about overturning Roe v. Wade. And they say that's, at the very least, the 15-week ban is going to be upheld. So we need to implement laws. This is what the radical Republican legislators are saying, that mimic exactly what we believe the Supreme Court's going to uphold. But then you even see, before the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation hearing, you have senators such as Marsha Blackburn saying that not only do we have to overturn Roe v. Wade, but Griswold v. Connecticut needs to be overturned, which held there's a privacy right for adults to use contraception. And I would only imagine that if that's what she's saying now, that's probably going to be something that will be right in front of that committee that you sat in front of in the next few months or the next year. That's the next issue.
No question about it. I know I seem angry. I am angry. I worked as a house mother and labor coach at a home for unwed mothers when I was in college. That's what I did as, sort of my extra job. And I can remember helping to deliver a young girl. She's 13 years old. This was her second full-term pregnancy. She had her first baby when she was 11. Now, somebody's abusing that girl. That was not addressed. What is addressed is that she has to have this baby. I can remember sitting in the front parlor, guys, and I mean this. My job was to supervise visitation between a 16-year-old girl, who was about 6-7 months pregnant at that time, and her father, who was the father of that child in her belly. My job was to sit in the front parlor and make sure he didn't do anything inappropriate. Like, why isn't he in jail? Why does he have the right to come visit his pregnant 16-year-old daughter here? This has been going on my entire life. People assume that women have a choice in getting pregnant. And that is not always the truth. Many, many times it is not the truth. And so they have no choices. It means somebody else can come in without their permission and basically change the trajectory of their entire life, their education, their economic status, their mental health and well-being, this child's life that they are not economically, psychologically, physically prepared to care for without ever being given a choice in that situation. I'm sorry. That's wrong.
And it's always been wrong. And our Supreme Court precedent recognized it was wrong dating back, for like 5 decades. It should have been forever. But as we've progressed as a country, fortunately, like that Griswold v. Connecticut case was a 7-2 decision that now Republicans want to overturn. They want to criticize Ketanji Brown Jackson for supporting that type of precedent. I think, one, this is a fundamental issue of our time, period. Set aside politics. It shouldn't be a political issue. This is about life, living, caring, compassion, health. I do think we don't hear about this enough, is probably the biggest understatement. To me, what we're talking about here needs to be talked about every single day. And I think it's media malpractice, quite frankly, that this is being swept under the rug and not being talked about at a level. This is the highest level of DEFCON in Republican radical legislators getting into the homes, the uterus, the bodies of women, and tormenting them intentionally. And it's not being talked about. And for 2022, if the radical right extremists, and that's who the Republicans are, sorry, that's who they are. If they take power, they will then go to contraception. They will then make, it's not an exaggeration, The Handmaid's Tale. I had to stop watching it because in many ways, the radical right here goes further than, goes further than them, or it's symbolically maybe a little bit extreme in the show, but in theory and implementation, it's the same. It's very similar. And so I just think, why isn't it being covered? Do people not want to talk about these issues? Is it too difficult? Is it too tough? And I think, we have that decision coming out, Dobbs v. Mississippi, probably May or June. And if that goes, unfortunately, the way I think we go, I think we all need to be marching in DC, marching in our state capitals. And this has to be a nationwide movement.
I think that's the only way we're going to fix it, honestly. And, you're talking about the Supreme Court, when we vetted these candidates, when we vetted Kavanaugh, when we vetted, I can't even think of her name right now. I mean, they both said, we will uphold precedents. We believe in precedents. We will uphold precedents. Guys, you've got what? It's 73 to 2022 is 70 years of precedents now. And you just lied to us. If you decide the way the country thinks you're going to decide, you lied to us in your confirmation hearings.
We knew when they were doing it that there were lies in the confirmation hearings. And I think that's an issue sometimes with, they lie so casually, like for them, words don't matter. And for people whose values align with Democratic, and I don't love labels, whether it's progressive, liberal. I mean, I always say I find myself to be more conservative than some of the conservatives because I believe in conserving Supreme Court precedent, conserving our democracy. I don't believe in insurrections. I believe in hygiene. I believe, you get a vaccine, you try to protect your community. I'm not sure. I guess to me, that's conservative. But they lie with such, and I'm sure you see this all the time with the guys who are around you, like they don't give a crap about their words. They just go around whatever comes out of their mouth that protects them. It's no shame whatsoever. And we care though about integrity. We care about getting it right. And I think we just have to connect the way you've connected with people and say, you know what? that person's lying to you. Look at it. Like that person's not telling you the truth.
They're not. And I mean, and that's, it's, for me, coming from medicine, medicine's fairly integrated. So, even though, I mean, I've been in medicine for a while now. And when I first started, it was a little unusual for women. There were definitely more men, but now, it's flipped, and some medical school classes have more women than men now. So, coming from medicine, I was used to being in rooms where there were men and women. And I can remember the first day I showed up in Frankfurt, on the podium, and I was looking around. This is my first committee meeting. I was like, I was the only woman there. And it was like, oh, wow, I have walked into a world that is new to me. This is not a world that I'm familiar with. This is a world I'm going to have to learn to navigate. And it's not that there aren't women there. I mean, there's 38 senators. 6 of us are female. So there are other women, but they don't have control. They have no control, none. At least here in Kentucky, in the Senate, the majority are older white men who have been there for a long, long time and feel that this issue is going to get them votes. They don't realize that 70% of Americans actually want women to have choice. 70% of Americans feel that we should have access to safe, legal women's health care. And they don't care. They just simply do not care.
Senator Berg, I've hijacked this interview from my brothers because I've so enjoyed speaking to you. And so I see Brett there, I see Jordy there. So this is the body language of our brothers. So Brett's like, are you going to let me speak, Ben? Jordy's like, thank gosh, I don't have to ask any tough questions. So they're both giving me different looks. Jordy's like, I'm getting a pass.
Not
I get
true.
to wear my glasses
Not
and I get to look handsome during the interview and do nothing. And Brett's like, Ben, let me ask a question.
Guess
Brett.
just the Ben show today. I don't know. I'm just kidding. So here's what I want to, clarity on, because, we've seen obviously your messaging breakthrough in Kentucky. And I know Ben sort of hit on this earlier, but Kentucky to me is like one of the most fascinating states out there, politically speaking, because you have Democratic Governor Andy Beshear, you have Republican Senators Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell, and you have Democratic State Senator Karen Berg. Could you just explain Kentucky politically to our listeners and viewers, for those who may look at that and be like, how is this even possible?
Well, Kentucky used to be a Democratic state. Growing up, this was a Democratic state. I think that there are people in the state who still don't realize that they are not voting in their own personal best interest. And I think they feel that having 2 United States senators who are well-known nationally gets us something, gets them something that it does not get. And we've got a bill coming up this week that is going to severely restrict the rollout of the ACA here in Kentucky. It's going to make basically preemptive eligibility for Medicaid essentially not possible. So that when people show up at a hospital and they don't have insurance, and the hospital says, well, from what the data we have from you, you're eligible for Medicaid, let's get you enrolled so that not only can we see you today and get paid, which our rural hospitals desperately need, but you can have follow-up. You can actually leave our emergency room and make an appointment with a provider to see you, okay? Which if you don't have insurance, you can't do in this state. They don't exist. And people don't realize how badly that's going to hurt them.
So they voted for people who are stripping their health care, who are just totally obliterating the Affordable Care Act. They voted for people who are passing a bill that is removing $50 million in additional food stamps for themselves.
And unemployment benefits. We more than halved our unemployment benefits yesterday. Went from 26 weeks to 12 weeks.
And all because, hey, we have Mitch McConnell, who has a national presence, so it makes Kentucky relevant in this space. That's kind of that's why they're voting against their interests, and in your opinion.
I don't know that they really realize how much against their own interest these bills are. It's messaging. It's how do you get to people? How do you get to people? And guys, all of this at a time when we have more money to help the people in the state of Kentucky than we have ever had before. Ever before. Oh, one other thing. Right now, the budget doesn't even fund kindergarten, much less preschool, which we were really hoping preschool was going to get funded. They pulled the budget for all-day kindergarten in the hopes of giving that money to charter schools. It's befuddling. It's absolutely befuddling.
I mean, you look at it on paper, it just seems like evil, right? It just seems like the bad thing to do. Like as a human being, it seems like this is a bad way to use, or rather not use, the resources that we have, rather than, you think that people go into government to help people. And it seems like these people go into government to hurt people on purpose, or to hoard the money and funnel it into other different systems.
We have unprecedented money coming into the state, the goal of which is to move forward, to make really a significant impact on the trajectory of the future. And we can't even fund kindergarten.
Your messaging clearly breaks through in Kentucky. I mean, you got elected, you went crazy viral with this video. You really touched a nerve. And so I was just wondering, and I wouldn't want to see you leave the state Senate because you're so incredible there, but have you considered higher political office?
No, I never even honestly dreamed that I could win a Senate seat. So no, my goal, honestly, I'm up for re-election. KarenForKentucky.com, all spelled out. I have a general in November. I've got 3 Republicans right now who are running a primary against me. My goal is to get reelected for one more term. And the truth is, if I can get reelected for one more term, guys, I've got 4 years where nobody can shut me up.
And Senator Berg, you have been so amazing and so generous with your time. And much to Ben's chagrin over here, I actually do have an important question. It's a different type of question than I think you may have been expecting coming into this interview, but really curious to get your thoughts here. So Senator Berg, you are the only Jewish member of the Kentucky State Senate. As a Jewish American myself, something I've noticed that's been pretty interesting over the last couple of years is that our community appears to be split. And it's a pretty sharp split. Like 50% appear to be pro-democracy loving Americans, and 50% appear to be like MAGA loving lunatics. I mean, look no further than yourself in the great state of Kentucky and everything that you fight for. And then look at MAGA Republican Josh Mandel, for example, who's the lead Republican candidate for senator in Ohio, and the hatred he spews daily. Do you get the same feeling that there is this divide within the Jewish community? And if so, how do you make heads or tails?
There is a divide within the Jewish community. There's no question. Even on issues such as abortion. Mm-hmm. Jewish law says the life of the mother comes first until you're in childbirth, until you're actually in labor. But there are certainly branches of Judaism that would not condone just simply elective termination of a pregnancy for no reason. So yes, there are a lot of things that we don't all agree on, and that you're going to find that with any group of people. But the truth is, the substance, we get to the bottom of the bottom, that our job is to make the world a better place. Mm-hmm. And if you can do that, if you can make peace in your own home instead of making peace in all the world, they're not asking us. And I have a little poster on my wall that I stole from my daughter. One of my kids is a rabbi. I stole from her office wall. It says, a Jew is asked to take a leap of action rather than a leap of faith. I believe that.
And Senator Berg, one more time, can you let our audience know? I'm sure we have tons of folks we call in our family the Midas Mighty who would love to support you, love to support your re-election efforts, where they can do that just one more time.
It's Karen for Kentucky. Everything spelled out. FORKENTUCK, like KarenForKentucky.com.
State Senator Karen Berg from Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us on the MeidasTouch podcast. We appreciate everything you do, and we appreciate your time today.
Oh, guys, thank you for asking me. Thank you for speaking. Thank you for being there. These are the voices. If we could, this is what we need. This is really what we need. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you.
What a great interview with State Senator Karen Berg.
She's incredible.
I think this episode, Ben, has really proven your thesis at the top of the episode, which is we need more women in leadership. I mean,
Yes.
we just had two of the most incredible women, from very different backgrounds, very different parts of the world come on. And I'm like breathless at just how impressive that both of them are.
I couldn't agree more with you. And I mean, look, we're three brothers. And so like, I can't go back and change, what our parents, what our parents did.
I like when some people try to criticize us for that, though. Like, you ever see like the Twitter comments that are like,
All the time.
lack of diversity in MeidasTouch.
Lack
I'm like,
diversity
we're
and
related.
Well, I'll send your message to my mother and father, and I'll report that.
But it is important that we empower women in leadership positions. So that's just normal. Like, it shouldn't even be a thing. Like it shouldn't even have to be something that's commented on, because it should just be what exists. And seeing Olena, seeing Karen, speaking with them, both most qualified, like intelligent people like we've interviewed. Like it amazes me that we have a platform like this where we get to even speak to people like that.
And Ben, I'm going to elaborate on a statement I made earlier in the episode, because earlier in the episode I said, show your friends and family, Cory Booker's speech, and then show them how the Republicans were behaving during the thing, and say, is this the America I want to live in, or which America do I want to live in? But I'm going to expand that to say, what world do I want to live in? Do I want to live in the world of Elena Sutnik's and Karen Berg's, or do I want to live in the world of Vladimir Putin's and Ted Cruz's and Lindsey Graham's? Because that is really the broader implications of everything that's going on. And an interesting stat that I just looked up, which I think you'd find interesting, particularly Ben, 63% of the Ukrainian parliament is under the age of 45. I just think that's a very fascinating stat with what you were saying before, also about these young women leaders taking power there, and the impact and the energy that they have when you compare it to looking at our Senate.
I find that interesting.
It really explains everything. Like, when I looked at it, when I saw some of these photos, I was like, and then I was like looking at the Twitter accounts. I was like, got it. That is why. Like, that's why they're winning this war. That's why they stand up to Putin. That's why Putin hates them. That's why Putin is intimidated by them. But that's why Putin can never take the heart and soul of their democracy and what they've built. Brett Jordy, it's been incredible spending this pod with you each and every episode. To get to do this with you is always a joy and pleasure. Special thanks to our guest, Elena Sutnik and Karen Berg, for joining our podcast. And special thanks to our sponsors, Fast Growing Trees, Masterworks, and Trade Coffee. See you next time on the MeidasTouch podcast.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty!